The Harshtok Alliance was renowned as the pinnacle of galactic engineering. For centuries, their creations, starships that hummed like symphonies, terraforming devices capable of coaxing life from barren rocks, and intricate machinery that operated with molecular precision had been the galaxy's gold standard. When an invitation arrived to collaborate with the human-led Sol Federation on a planetary defense project, it sparked more curiosity than excitement. "We've heard of humans," Ralok sneered, his crystalline voice resonating through the engineering chamber. As one of the Alliance's senior engineers, his opinion carried weight, and he wielded it with cutting precision. His shimmering, quartz-like skin caught the light as he gestured dismissively at the holographic invitation. They once repaired a life support system with chewing gum. The other Harshtok engineers chuckled, their laughter resonating like soft chimes. To the Harshtok, engineering was art, science, and religion combined. The idea of working alongside creatures who apparently considered tape a structural material bordered on insulting. "Perhaps it is a gesture of goodwill," suggested Vilak, Ralok's protégé, his voice hesitant. Unlike his mentor, Vilak viewed the invitation with cautious curiosity, though he dared not show too much enthusiasm. "Goodwill or not," Ralok said, "the Council insists we proceed. Political alliances demand these sacrifices. We will help the humans, if only to teach them what real engineering looks like." 2 weeks later, Ralok, Vilak, and a small team of elite Harshtok engineers arrived at Mirior 7. The planet was a vital outpost on the outer rim, its defense array intended to protect the surrounding sector from threats both cosmic and interstellar. What they found was chaos. Human crews swarmed the construction site like a hive of bees, except with no discernible pattern to their movements. Equipment was scattered across the ground, scaffolding leaned at precarious angles, and the entire operation appeared to lack a centralized blueprint. Ralok's three eyes blinked in staggered disbelief. This is not an engineering site, it is a scrapyard. One human stood out from the madness. Tall and wiry, with unruly brown hair and a grin that seemed permanently etched on his face, he approached the Harshtok team with an easy confidence. "Welcome to the project," the man said, extending a hand. "Mark Hansen, lead engineer. Hope you're ready to get your hands dirty." Ralok regarded the offered hand as one might a suspicious food item, unsure of its purpose or cleanliness. "Ralok," he said stiffly, declining the handshake. "Senior engineer, Harshtok Alliance. We prefer to keep our hands clean." Beside him, Vilak murmured, "Do they not sterilize their tools?" Mark laughed, clearly not insulted. "Sometimes. Depends on how desperate we are." This elicited a chorus of soft chimes from the Harshtok team, their equivalent of laughter. "Follow me," Mark said, gesturing toward the construction site. "I'll show you what we've got so far." What they had, as it turned out, was an abomination. The defense array, a sprawling collection of shield generators and planetary cannons, was a patchwork of salvaged starship panels, repurposed mining equipment, and, to Ralok's horror, rope. "You're building a planetary defense system with rope?" he asked, his voice rising to a crystalline pitch. Mark shrugged. "It's temporary. Holds surprisingly well, though." Ralok's quartz-like skin shimmered with indignation. "Temporary solutions are the mark of poor planning. This structure lacks coherence, precision, and functionality," Mark interrupted with a grin. "Because it works, I promise. You cannot seriously expect this. Assemblage to hold against any credible threat." "Exactly why you're here," Mark said cheerfully. For the next week, the Harshtok engineers set about correcting what they saw as glaring deficiencies in the human designs. With their advanced tools and meticulous approach, they replaced crude materials with high-grade alloys, recalibrated energy relays, and reprogrammed targeting algorithms. Ralok took great satisfaction in pointing out the inefficiencies of the human methods at every opportunity. Mark, to his credit, seemed unbothered by the constant critiques. He often worked alongside the Harshtok team, chatting amiably while they labored in chilly silence. One evening, as Ralok worked alone on a shield generator, Mark approached with a cup of something steaming. "Coffee," Mark offered, holding the cup out. I do not consume your beverages, Ralok said without looking up. Mark set the cup down anyway and leaned against the generator. You think we're hopeless, don't you? Ralok paused, considering his response. Your methods lack foresight. They are reactionary, inelegant, that is, charitable. Mark laughed. Fair enough. But let me ask you this, what happens when one of your systems fails? Ralok straightened, his tone defensive. Rarely do our systems fail. When they do, it is due to circumstances beyond control. We salvage what we can, retreat, and return with proper resources. Mark nodded thoughtfully. Makes sense. But sometimes you don't get to retreat. Out here, we don't have the luxury of perfection. We make do with what we've got. It's not pretty, but it works. It works, Ralok said pointedly, until it does not. Mark grinned. Guess we'll see. The day of the first system test arrived. Engineers from both teams crowded into the observation bunker, a reinforced dome with a clear view of the array. The plan was simple: simulate an attack, activate the shields, and assess their performance under stress. Commencing test in 30 seconds, announced the AI technician. The shield generators powered up with a low hum, their energy conduits glowing faintly. On the holographic display, the defense dome shimmered into existence. Preliminary results are acceptable, Vilak admitted, grudging respect in his voice. Yeah, they should be, Mark said, leaning casually against the console. Most of the patches we made are still in there. Ralok spun toward him. You left your patches intact. Mark's grin widened. Why not? They've got personality. Before Ralok could respond, the countdown reached 0, and the simulation began. Energy blasts rained down from the automated attack drones, striking the shields with precise ferocity. The dome held, rippling but intact. Shields at 85% integrity, the AI reported. Vilak looked impressed. It is. Functional. Functional for now, Ralok muttered. As the intensity of the attack increased, a sharp crack echoed through the bunker. One of the shield nodes sparked and sputtered, its glow dimming. Node destabilization detected, the AI warned. Relax, Mark said, rolling up his sleeves. This is where it gets interesting. You call failure interesting? Ralok snapped. Mark ignored him, barking orders to his team. On the display, human engineers swarmed the damaged node, deploying what appeared to be metallic tarps and handheld welding tools. In minutes, the node stabilized, and the shield's glow returned. They improvised, Vilak murmured, his voice tinged with reluctant admiration. Ralok's quartz-like jaw clenched. Improvisation is no substitute for preparation. Mark, overhearing, clapped him on the shoulder. Preparation's great, but out here, improvisation saves lives. Ralok stared at him, conflicted. For the first time, he wondered if there might be wisdom hidden beneath the chaos. The next morning, the engineers gathered in the project control room to review the data from the shield test. Holographic displays projected metrics, charts, and playback footage of the simulation. The shields had performed better than expected, but the makeshift repair remained a point of contention. This patchwork solution, Ralok began, gesturing to the footage of the human team's frantic repairs, demonstrates exactly why your methods are unsuitable for sustained operation. The damage could have been avoided entirely with proper materials and planning. Mark leaned back in his chair, balancing a stylus between his fingers. Sure, maybe. But let's not forget that your materials and planning couldn't stop that node from failing in the first place. Vilak winced at the tension in the room. Perhaps there is merit in refining both approaches. The node failed because of strain in the energy conduit, an issue we might have overlooked without the human input. Ralok's crystalline eyes flickered. He knew Vilak was right, but admitting so in front of Mark felt like conceding defeat. Fine, Ralok said stiffly. We will analyze the conduit design, but we must also replace the hose. Mark stifled a laugh. Come on, Ralok. It's not just any hose, it's a thermoplastic elastomer conduit. Durable, heat-resistant, and already proven effective. It is, Ralok said coolly, a garden hose. The room fell silent for a moment before Mark burst into laughter, his amusement infectious enough to draw a chuckle from even the stoic Vilak. The quiet moments of levity were short-lived, as later that afternoon, an emergency alert blared across the compound. Unidentified object detected, announced the AI, its mechanical tone calm despite the urgency. Trajectory indicates collision course with Meteor 7. Estimated impact in 5 hours. The engineers scrambled to the observation deck. A holographic display projected the object's path, a massive asteroid with a jagged surface and an unnerving glow of radioactive energy. An asteroid, Vilak asked. This planet has no natural asteroid belt. Mark's brow furrowed. Might not be natural. Could be a rogue fragment from the outer scour fields. It matters not where it came from, Ralok said. What matters is how we stop it. The defense array was still far from fully operational, but there was no time for debate. The engineers mobilized, dividing tasks between human improvisation and Harshtok precision. In the main control hub, Mark coordinated the human team. We need to stabilize the shields first. Maggie, grab that backup generator and hook it to node 3. A technician hesitated. It's not calibrated yet. Doesn't matter, Mark said, pulling a roll of tape from his belt. Just get it running. We'll make it work. Nearby, Ralok and Vilak worked on recalibrating the targeting systems for the planetary cannons. The trajectory is irregular, Vilak noted. If we target the largest fragment. No, Ralok interrupted. The asteroid's composition is unstable. Fragmentation will scatter radioactive debris across the planet. We must aim for total disintegration. You'll never get a clean hit without the primary targeting relays, Mark called out. Overhearing. They're still offline. Ralok glared at him. Then we will use the secondary systems. They're inaccurate at that range. Then perhaps your hose can fix them, Ralok snapped. Mark smirked, unfazed by the jab. Not this time. Duct tape, though? That's got range. The asteroid loomed closer, its jagged edges reflecting the system's faint starlight. The engineers worked frantically, a mix of human and Harshtok methods combining in ways neither team could have anticipated. Cannon systems online, Vilak reported. Shields at 65%, Maggie called out, sweat dripping from her brow. That's enough, Mark said. Ralok, are you ready to trust a little human ingenuity? Ralok hesitated, his pride warring with practicality. Finally he nodded. Fire the cannons. The array roared to life, its cannons unleashing a synchronized barrage of energy beams. The first volley struck the asteroid, vaporizing a portion of its surface, but failing to alter its trajectory. Direct the second volley to the central core, Ralok ordered. On it, Mark said, adjusting the manual controls. Let's hope your precision lives up to the hype. The second volley hit its mark. The asteroid shuddered, glowing brighter as its core destabilized. Radiation levels spiking, Maggie warned. Ralok scanned the data. The shields must absorb the remaining debris. Reinforce the generator conduits. Mark darted toward the failing generator, carrying a coil of insulated wire. Give me 60 seconds. You do not have 60 seconds, Ralok shouted. Then I'll take 30, Mark shot back, already at work. As the asteroid broke apart, the shields flared brilliantly, absorbing the radioactive fragments. The control room erupted in cheers as the last piece disintegrated in the atmosphere. Ralok slumped into a chair, exhausted but relieved. It worked, he admitted, his voice quiet. Mark grinned, slapping him on the back. Told you. Improvisation saves the day. Ralok managed a faint smile. This time, perhaps, but only because of preparation. Mark laughed. Call it a draw. Vilak, standing nearby, chimed in. If this is a draw, I fear what a victory would look like. For the first time, Ralok laughed, a sound like tinkling glass. It was a moment of shared triumph, one that hinted at a future where both precision and ingenuity could coexist. The debris from the asteroid had barely cooled in Mirior 7's atmosphere when the next crisis arrived. As the engineers worked to repair and reinforce the defense array, a distress signal blared across the comms system. Unidentified vessel detected, the AI announced. Class Vortexian battleship. Status hostile. Estimated time to engagement 90 minutes. The room froze. The Vortexians were infamous across the galaxy, pirates and marauders who thrived on the destruction of weaker systems. Their ships were brutal, equipped with heavy plasma cannons and shield-piercing technology. They likely directed the asteroid at this planet to soften its defenses, Ralok surmised, his voice cold. Mark leaned against the console, frowning. So that was a warm-up. It appears so, Ralok replied. We must prepare for immediate confrontation. Vilak spoke up hesitantly. The array is still incomplete. Our cannons have limited range, and the shields will not survive a prolonged assault. Mark's expression shifted, determination replacing the humor he usually wore. Then we'll have to make what we've got count. The team split into two groups. Ralok and the Harshtok engineers focused on reconfiguring the array's targeting systems to compensate for the missing primary relays. Meanwhile, Mark and the humans scrambled to reinforce the shields and jury rig an experimental energy amplifier. It's not calibrated, Maggie warned as she connected the amplifier to the central power grid. If it overloads, it could blow the whole array. Mark nodded. Let's just hope the Vortexians don't give us a reason to find out. As the teams worked, tension simmered in the background. You humans are reckless, Ralok said, watching Mark use a soldering iron to fuse two mismatched conduits. And you overthink everything, Mark shot back. If we waited for perfection, that asteroid would have flattened this planet by now. Ralok's three eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Deep down, he knew Mark was right. When the Vortexian battleship entered orbit, its ominous silhouette filled the sky. The planetary comms buzzed with an incoming transmission. This is Captain Rokar of the Void Razor, a guttural voice declared. Surrender your resources and prepare for boarding. Resistance will lead to your annihilation. Mark tapped the console, cutting the transmission. Friendly bunch, aren't they? Ralok's voice was steel. We will not surrender. From the observation deck, the team watched as the battleship's plasma cannons lit up, unleashing a barrage of fire. The shields flared to life, absorbing the first wave, but the strain was immediate. Shields at 60%, Vilak reported. We'll need to take the fight to them, Mark said. Ralok, can your fancy targeting systems hit a moving target in low orbit? They can if your cannons remain operational, Ralok replied. They will, Mark promised. But you'll need to give us time to reinforce the nodes. Time is a luxury we do not have. Then we'll make it work, Mark said with a grin, already racing toward the shield generator. The next 30 minutes were a chaotic dance of teamwork and desperation. The Harshtok engineers recalibrated the targeting arrays with meticulous speed, while the humans scrambled to repair damage in real time. Shield integrity critical, Maggie shouted as another volley struck the array. Mark was on his hands and knees beneath a sparking conduit, his face streaked with soot. Ralok, tell me those cannons are ready. They are online, Ralok said. Firing sequence engaged. The array's cannons roared, sending streaks of energy toward the Vortexian battleship. The first volley struck the ship's shields, causing them to shimmer but hold. Not enough power, Ralok muttered. We must target their primary weapons array. On it, Mark shouted. He climbed onto the cannon platform, manually adjusting its trajectory. You are exposing yourself, Ralok called out, his voice unusually sharp. Mark flashed a thumbs up. Just keep those shields running. The next volley hit its mark, breaching the battleship's shields and disabling one of its plasma cannons. The Vortexians responded with a concentrated blast, the impact shaking the entire array. Generator 3 is offline, Vilak warned. I've got it, Mark shouted, sprinting to the damaged node. He arrived to find the conduit nearly severed, sparks flying. Without hesitation, he pulled off his jacket, wrapped it around the conduit, and secured it with a strip of tape. Ralloch's voice crackled over the comms. "That is not a solution." "It is now," Mark replied. With the shield stabilized, the cannons fired a final, devastating volley. The energy beams tore through the battleship's hull, igniting its core systems. The Vortexians scrambled to retreat, their ship limping back into deep space. When the battle ended, the engineers gathered in the control room, exhaustion etched into every face. Ralloch turned to Mark, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "Your methods defy logic, and yet they have saved this planet." Mark grinned, collapsing into a chair. "Not bad for a bunch of duct tape and spare parts, huh?" Ralloch allowed a small, tinkling laugh. "Perhaps not bad at all." The aftermath of the Vortexian attack left the defense array in shambles. Shield nodes were scorched, targeting arrays flickered erratically, and half the conduits looked more like abstract art than functional components. But the planet was safe, and for the first time, the humans and Harshtok engineers worked side by side without skepticism or snide remarks. Mark and Ralloch stood in the central control hub, surveying the damage. "It's a mess," Mark said, his hands on his hips. "But it's our mess." Ralloch's crystalline features reflected the dim light of the consoles. "This system has endured far more than it was designed to handle. That it remains operational is unexpected." "Call it a miracle of human engineering," Mark grinned. "More like a miracle of human audacity," Ralloch retorted, though there was no venom in his words. Velok approached, holding a diagnostic tablet. "We've stabilized the primary systems, but several nodes will require full reconstruction. The secondary relays." He paused, glancing at Mark. "May yet benefit from your unconventional techniques." Mark's eyes widened mockingly. "Did you just ask me to use duct tape?" "Do not push your luck," Velok said, turning away, though a faint shimmer of humor crossed his crystalline face. News of the battle and the unlikely collaboration between humans and Harshtoks spread quickly. A delegation from the Pan-Galactic Engineering Symposium arrived days later, eager to see the fabled hybrid defense system in action. The symposium delegates were a diverse group: tall, multi-limbed Erythians, whose engineering expertise rivaled the Harshtok-flowing, semi-gaseous Lumivars, who specialized in energy manipulation, and even a few curious Edrians, their insectoid bodies adorned with tools and sensors. They gathered in the observation dome, their expressions ranging from intrigue to skepticism. Mark and Ralloch stood side by side, an odd but striking pair. Ralloch, poised and formal, delivered a precise overview of the system's design. He detailed the Harshtok contributions with pride, emphasizing the precision calibrations and advanced materials. When it was Mark's turn, he strode forward with his usual easy confidence. "Ralloch's right," he began. "This system is a masterpiece of planning and precision. But what makes it unique isn't just the fancy materials or the perfect algorithms. It's the imperfections, the parts we had to fix on the fly, the moments we had to trust in creativity and instinct." He gestured to a holographic display showing the battle footage. "See that? That's a garden hose holding a generator together. And there," he pointed to a patched-up relay. "That's duct tape. Not because we wanted to use them, but because when everything was falling apart, they were what we had, and they worked." The room buzzed with murmurs. Some delegates looked horrified, others fascinated. "Humans," one Erythian delegate muttered, her many arms crossing. "Always solving problems backwards." Mark grinned. "And forwards. And sideways. Whatever gets the job done." The demonstration concluded with a live test of the defense array. Though the system was still incomplete, the combined efforts of the Harshtok and human teams ensured it performed flawlessly. Shields flared to life, cannons fired with pinpoint accuracy, and the patched-together nodes held firm. When the test ended, the delegates rose in applause, a rare honor from the notoriously critical Pan-Galactic Symposium. As the symposium delegates departed, the engineers gathered for one final meeting. The defense array would be handed off to local crews for ongoing maintenance, but the collaboration between humans and Harshtok had left a lasting impression on everyone involved. Mark extended a hand to Ralok. So, what do you think? Ever gonna work with humans again? Ralok hesitated for a moment before shaking Mark's hand, his grip firm. While I find your methods unconventional, there is value in your adaptability. Perhaps in time, our approaches may complement each other further. Mark grinned. I'll take that as a yes. Vilak, standing nearby, folded his crystalline arms. If we continue this partnership, I suggest we teach you proper terminology. A conduit is not a hose, no matter how effective it may be. Mark laughed, clapping Vilak on the shoulder. Deal. And maybe we'll teach you how to use duct tape. Vilak looked horrified. That will not be necessary. Ralok's crystalline face shimmered in the light, the faintest hint of a smile visible. Perhaps it will. As the team boarded their respective ships, the stars of Mirior 7 twinkled above, bearing silent witness to the birth of a new era, one where precision and improvisation, tradition and innovation, might just forge a stronger galaxy.